Well, Jack Leiter is going to be out a lot longer than the Rangers initially expected. And where does that leave this rotation? Well, it leaves them in a tough spot.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Paddock, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 13 seasons, including all 8 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. But you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Paddock. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about Jack Leiter's injury, how it's even worse than the Rangers expected, the surgery he went when he's expected to come back, what the Rangers options are in the interim, and a loss last night that felt a little bit like a scheduled loss to the Miami Marlins. Now let's talk about Jack Leiter. Now yesterday, Jack Leiter underwent surgery to remove some loose bodies in his ankle. He was dealing with the effects of an ankle injury that he had been trying to pitch through, that he suffered back on April 22nd. Against the Pirates. He was pitching through it. He was not pitching through it very well. The success that he had last year in his breakout season, especially in the second half, you were looking for him to build on it. And outside of a few pretty good starts for him this year, it's been mostly a rough bag for Jack Leiter, but he was still, credit to him, credit to the competitor that this kid is. He has not had a long, lengthy injury history. I think part of that is because he is so stubborn-headed and determined and takes good care of his body, and also is willing to pitch through a thing or two. But the Rangers did some scans and saw that this is something that he cannot pitch through biomechanically. It is something that has been affecting him. It has been affecting his release point. He has been altering his delivery, and that is something that could really impact his arm and his shoulder and all kinds of different things. So it could make pitching through it, not just make the injury on his ankle worse, but could spawn some new injury on his elbow or shoulder, or something that could be a little bit more severe and impact him, longer term. You really hoping that's not the case, because he was altering his delivery, because his pinpoint was his command was just not where it was, and he was having to affect it because his ankle was hurting. It was just affecting everything else, and the Rangers decided to go ahead and put him on the shelf. He is placed on the 15-day IL. The Rangers called up Jose Corniell, who pitched last night. We'll talk about him in just a second. But right now, the Rangers are going to be without him for quite some time. After undergoing that surgery, he is expected to miss multiple months. He's not going to be back until at least August. If he comes back this season, the Rangers did express optimism that he would be back at some point this season. Now, you might have been hearing about loose bodies thinking, oh, well, Tarik Skubal just came back in a month. Well, that was one loose body, and it was in his elbow, and it was with a revolutionary new procedure called the nano needle. Is new technology that literally did not exist. And loose bodies in the elbow, that is a more common thing for pitchers to pitch through. It's a more common procedure. This is a new version of that procedure. So this is not something that is happening everywhere. It's not a universal thing. And also in the ankle, it's a little bit different. There's a lot more, elbow specialists that you would know. Dr. Keith Meister, who is the Rangers team doctor. There have been also Neil Elatrosh who did the surgery with the nano needle on Tarik Skubal. But the ankle injuries, there's not as much data, so there's not as much of a clear timetable for return. The Rangers had 2 different players in the last 15, maybe it's been more than that. I guess 16 years since 2010 that have undergone this. Giovanni Soto, who had this procedure in spring training. He wasn't playing again until July. And then Mitch Moreland back in 2014 in a season that was just, everyone was ravaged by injuries. He had that surgery in June and did not return that season, but that season was lost. And I don't think the Rangers were wanting to be, extra aggressive to bring Mitch Moreland back in a season where the Rangers were just the worst they had been in a long, long time. And there was no hope for anything going right that season. So who knows what the timeline will be exactly with Jack Leiter, but this kind of puts the Rangers' lack of depth in their rotation on display. The fact that they've been this healthy to this point is a credit to them, a credit to the guys in this rotation of Nathan Eovaldi, who has had some injury concerns in the past and did have to move his start back a day this past weekend. Thankfully, he made a start and looked pretty darn good while doing it. Mackenzie Gore has been, pretty much a pinnacle of health throughout his major league career, but he did leave one of his games early this year against Colorado, was pulled after one inning, dealing with a little bit of shoulder tightness. Turned out to be nothing, didn't even miss a start. That is a great thing. But Jacob deGrom literally just turned 38. He has made all of his starts so far this season. And Kumar Rocker has got his own lengthy injury history, but he's been fairly healthy and effective when you give him an opener so far this season. But the Rangers, planned for that. They knew that. They knew that going into the season. And so they had some backup plans heading into this year where if they did experience an injury, there were some guys that were hopefully going to come back and play a role if the Rangers, had multiple starters land on the IL. I mean, they signed Nabil Krismat, who I really liked, and he ended up having Tommy John surgery in spring training and will not pitch for the Rangers at all. They signed Austin Gomber, who pitched a little bit in AAA and then got signed away because he was doing, I guess, well enough to go elsewhere. The Rangers just signed Marco Gonzalez, who did not pitch in all of 2025 and has not pitched particularly well so far this season, either in AAA Round Rock or El Paso, where the Rangers got him from. He was with El Paso. He had a 7.99 ERA, made one start for Round Rock so far. A minor league deal is what the Rangers assigned him to. He was a longtime big leaguer, spent 10 seasons in the big leagues, mostly with Seattle, a little bit with St. Louis, and his most recent season in 2024 with Pittsburgh, where he had a 4.5 ERA in 7 starts there. Just an overall kind of serviceable guy, but it's been a while. He's 34 years old. He is very much a crafty lefty through and through, but kind of a stopgap that the Rangers have not had because of these guys like Krismat and Gomber who have gone elsewhere. And the Rangers also, have a guy in their rotation right now who is, kind of thrust into it, and Cal Quantrill, who has been doing pretty well. I would feel comfortable with the Rangers just stuck with him in this rotation spot, at least for now, but it's not the ideal scenario. The Rangers also signed Jordan Montgomery, who is on pace to come back about what the Rangers expected. He made his first rehab start of the year on Sunday. He only went 1 inning, though, for Frisco. He's projected to possibly go 2 innings, and it could be as soon as Friday that we see him again, whether that's in Frisco or Round Rock. I'm not exactly sure, but Montgomery is about a month away, at least, hopefully a little bit less, but around a month away. Towards the end of July is about when the Rangers were expecting him, and that's about when you can expect to see him on the mound. Cody Bradford, who was supposed to be back in May, at some point in May, after undergoing internal brace surgery last year, who was a huge breakout candidate in 2024. I mean, he looked fantastic, and him undergoing internal brace surgery, not pitching at all in 2025, was a huge loss for this Rangers squad. Him coming back at some point in May gave the Rangers a little bit of added depth, or it would have had it actually happened, but he had 1 rehab start and had to be shut back down. Thankfully, there have been no further setbacks since then, just a lot of holding patterns. He is a little bit behind where Jordan Montgomery is. He is completing his throwing his long test and all that before he can actually get in a rehab game. So he won't be back until probably at some point in August, maybe early August if you're being optimistic. But still, it would have been really nice to have him, either one of those guys, back at this point. Montgomery, it was never the expectation since he had Tommy John surgery back in 2025. But Cody Bradford would have been very helpful to have at this point in the season for exactly this reason. And the Rangers had another option that was fighting for a rotation spot in spring training, but he's just been too valuable in the bullpen to send him back. Jacob Latz is the Rangers' best closer in a long time. This is a guy that is as reliable as it gets in the 9th inning. And when you have someone who is doing that well, and the Rangers have not had great closers, they had such a bad closer problem last year that if Jacob Latz was doing this in the 9th inning last year, maybe the Rangers even make the postseason. But because he's finding so much success right now in the middle of the season, I don't think the Rangers can go ahead and just shift him back into the rotation. And also the reason he didn't make the rotation out of spring training, even though Rocker didn't look particularly inspiring in the spring, Jack Leiter looked much better, but it was very much a debate of Rocker versus Latz for that final spot in this rotation. But Latz just was not holding his velocity deep into games, and not even deep into games, but into like the 3rd or 4th inning even. And if that's what's happening with Latz as a starter, and you can choose between Latz being kind of effective in 3, 4, maybe 5 innings as a starter, or you can have him be this dominant, untouchable force in the 8th or ninth, or sometimes 8th and ninth innings, and also sometimes in extra innings that you can just count to slam the door down. He's only had one loss so far this year, and he has not blown a save in 14 opportunities. He has been as good as it gets back there, and you don't want to mess with it. Same with Jacob Junis, who had been a starter for most of his career. He has been so effective in the back end of this Rangers pen. I don't think the Rangers really want to mess with it, and Cal Quantrill, I think, will be fine. You just get him stretched out. You keep him as a starter for the next month or so, but it's not a long-term solution. It's not what the Rangers hoped who would fill in some of these spots. But we're talking about who they have and why they might not be the best options. Some prospects who I thought would be ready by now, and it turns out they're clearly not. Talk about that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos can show up fast. That's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, experience, and location. Finding the right person can make all the difference, whether it's building business or building a winning team. Some of the best moves organizations make aren't always the splashiest ones. Sometimes it's finding the person who fits exactly what your team needs at the right moment. That's what stood out to me. It's the same idea behind Indeed Sponsored Jobs, helping connect organizations with candidates who are the right fit from the start. Spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who actually check all your boxes with less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be back and talk about the finale of this series. Hopefully the Rangers winning a series. Hopefully another gem from Jacob deGrom in this one. But either way, I'll be back. And if you want to be part of the Everydayers Club, go to LockedOnTexasRangers.supercast.com to join the Everydayers Club today. Now, the Rangers have done a much better job as of late at developing pitching prospects. This has been one of the things that Chris Young has very much overhauled in his time as the GM and also as the president of baseball operations for the Texas Rangers. Much love to John Daniels and all the good work he did of developing, some prospect capital, but developing pitchers he could not do. This Rangers organization could not do basically for the entire tenure of this Rangers organization. And in the last couple of years, he's been churning out some pretty good starting pitching prospects and just some guys who are homegrown and actually finding success. Cody Bradford was definitely one of those before the injuries have derailed him a little bit. Jack Leiter last year was definitely an example of that. Kumar Rocker as well. I mean, this is not a team that had developed really any kind of competent starting pitching that from a homegrown perspective. They had signed and delivered some of those guys on nice free agent contracts, but actually drafting and developing pitchers was not something that was a strength of this organization. It's become a little bit more so of one now, but it's not as much of a strength as I would kind of like it to be at this point. There were several prospects that I thought at this point in the season might be ready to come up and actually help if the Rangers needed somebody for, 3 starts, 4 starts, 5 starts to just jump in and be solid, serviceable options. They had some guys on the 40-man roster that I thought would be ready, and I thought Corniell would be one of them. And so far, he really has not been. David Davalillo was a guy who I still foresee eventually as a solid number 5 starter, a guy who's not going to get a whole lot of swings and misses, but is going to be competent. He's going to miss the barrels of bats. He's going to get some weak contact. Occasionally, he's going to get a whiff or two when he needs it. But he's not going to blow by, 98 by these guys, but he's going to have pretty good command and just be a solid, serviceable, capable big league starting pitcher. And Davalillo looked fantastic last year in Double-A Frisco. This year in Round Rock, he has looked just flat out lost. It has been awful for David Davalillo. He's 25 years old. He's got a 7.59 ERA in 6 games for Round Rock. He's got almost as many walks as innings pitched, just barely more innings pitched than walks, 21 1/3 versus innings pitched versus 21 walks, just 17 strikeouts, which had never been a big part of his game. but he's also been just allowing a whole lot of base runners, something he did not do last year. And the walks have been something that has never been a problem with David Davalillo. He's been a guy who has got good control, good command, or good enough command to throw quality strikes. And the fact that he is just walking everybody is a huge red flag. He's never going to be a high strikeout guy. He had a lot more strikeouts and a lot more walks early on this season. And I thought he would be a guy who could, jump into action and be at least okay. And so far, he has not been a viable option. The Rangers had another couple of prospects in their top 10 who just have also, I thought, would be right there and have not been. Jose Corniell just came up this week and just did not look good in his first outing in the big leagues since his big league debut on the final game of last year, where he looked good in the first inning of work and then had to pitch extra innings and got tagged for a walk-off homer and the loss in his big league debut. But Corniell gave up 5 runs in 3 1/3 innings last night. He did strike out 3, but he gave up a couple of home runs that were not cheapies. He got really behind in counts. He was just not being as aggressive as you would like to see. He would, just giving up a lot of leadoff runners, especially. He would just lose the leadoff man, and that just puts you behind the 8 ball for the entirety of that inning. Corniell has dealt with a lot of injuries for the last couple of years. After 2023, he was the Rangers Pitcher of the Year. He had Tommy John surgery in 2024, came back and looked pretty solid in 2025, but this year just has not been quite there. Even in Round Rock this year, he has not looked particularly inspiring, and he definitely hasn't looked that inspiring in this one game here. He has a 6.08 ERA in Round Rock, and of these guys in the top 10 of the Rangers pitching prospects, he kind of has been performing the best. He's got 6.5 Ks per 9, 3.5 walks per 9, and nearly 12 hits per 9, but somehow hasn't allowed a home run so far this year in 7 appearances for Round Rock. So I guess that's a win in what is a very, very hitter friendly league. A 6.08 ERA might look terrible, but it's not as terrible as it looks when you adjust to the league and the park factors and all of that stuff. But still, he's just not quite ready to be up and be the Rangers bulk guy, or actually have a spot in this rotation for the next month or so. And it's just another guy. And even Winston Santos, who I think is probably going to end up as a reliever, he has not been good this year. I truly think he's pitching through something. He's dealt with a lot of injuries over the last couple of years, had a back issue that made him miss most of last year. This year, he's been pitching his most recent outing on June 18th. He lowered his season ERA down to 7.44 after going 4 innings and giving up 3 earned runs. Yeah, let me say that again. His season ERA lowered, giving up 3 earned runs in 4 innings of work. The strikeouts have been great for him the last couple of outings. I mean, 9 strikeouts in 5 innings of work. His next to last start out there, and in that start where he gave up 3 in 4 innings, he struck out 7. And so overall, like the strikeout numbers have been good, but the walk rate has been a problem for him as of late and as of his career. I really do think he probably ends up as a reliever, not as a slight to him, but I think he ends up as a very, very nasty one. That fastball's got some great characteristics. But right now, he's just not quite ready in a way that you would kind of hope that he would be when you're suffering through this lack of depth. He only pitched in 6 games last year. He pitched in 1 for Round Rock, where he looked, pretty decent. He had 5 in Frisco, where he didn't look all that great. I mean, he made his Frisco debut back in 2024, and the fact that he's still there and he's still struggling is really frustrating for an organization that had made some big strides in terms of developing homegrown pitchers. But the other pitchers that the Rangers have in their top prospects that are not really particularly close. Caden Scarborough's looked good so far this year. He's made 6 starts after dealing with malignant melanoma this offseason. He's looked healthy. He's looked good, but he's still in high A Hub City. Maybe we'll see him in Double A Frisco at some point this year, I'm hoping. But again, he's still very far away. AJ Russell, who was Rangers' 2nd-round pick back last year, 52nd overall, and he was drafted basically as a reliever who is being stretched out. If the Rangers wanted to say, screw it, let's go ahead and just stick this guy in the pen because he could be flat out nasty against big league hitters right now, I think they could. But the Rangers want to keep him stretched out. He just got promoted from low A to high A, and he's been pretty impressive so far. He's gotten the pitch count up all the way to 59 pitches at the most. Back on May 24th, his last start for the Hickory Crawdads, he went 3 2/3 innings, struck out 5, didn't walk anybody, and allowed just 3 hits and threw 52 pitches. He is still very much getting stretched out as a starter because he was a reliever in college. He missed a decent chunk of time in college with some elbow injuries, but that fastball is very very special. The slider is a very good pitch, and it seems to be developing a little bit more of a changeup. His OPS against right-handed hitters so far this year is 218. His OPS, not his batting average against, not his on base against, his OPS against righties is 218, whereas against lefties, they're hitting over 300 and an 817 OPS. That changeup definitely could use some work for sure. But the fact that he's having this much success against righties is just very, very impressive. I'm excited to see him in high A Hickory not high A Hickory, high A Hub City. I keep getting those confused because the Rangers jumped them back and forth so many times, even in the same city. But still, the Rangers don't have anybody that's like particularly close. The Rangers have not ruled out somebody else being signed to kind of supplement that depth. Cal Quantrill, I think, will do for now. I wouldn't be surprised if Jose Corniell got just sent optioned right back down to the minor leagues. I'm not sure he's quite ready. He looked a lot worse than I hoped in this most recent outing. If not for a couple of home runs, then maybe this outing looks a little bit different. But still, 7 hits and 2 walks in 3 2/3 innings. That is not what you're looking for. Maybe Joe Ross is the answer. I don't really know at this point, but what I do know is the Rangers are in much more of a bind with their pitching than they were a week ago. And this Jack Leiter injury came at a really rough time with so few off days in the span of the next week or so, really until the All-Star break. There's just, I think, 1 off day the Rangers have. Literally 2 off days that the Rangers have between now and the All-Star break, which the All-Star break is July 13th. We're still 3 weeks away from that. We are still quite a ways from that happening. The Rangers don't have a break until July the 3rd, so the Rangers still have to finish out this road trip and then come home for a game against the Tigers on a Thursday on July the 2nd, and then they get an off day on a Friday for the first time in what is probably a very, very long time during the season. But still, the Rangers are in a tough spot right now. And I got to give credit to Cal Quantrill, who outside of that home run, looked decent. I thought he might get more than 2 innings of work in this one, but alas, he didn't. Credit to Joe Ross, who came in and looked pretty good. He had some inherited runners that he did not allow to score, finished at 2 2/3 innings of shutout ball with a couple of strikeouts and a couple of hits and just 1 walk. Overall looked, decent. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of him, but with these are 3 guys that are in your pen right now, I don't feel good about having to rely on all these guys, but credit to them for at least getting the job done in what felt like a little bit of a scheduled loss with so many of the Rangers relievers down. You wish the offense could have picked them back up, and they kind of did, except it was just a little bit too little, too late. We'll talk about that, and an actual timeline for Corey Seager's return is finally ahead of us. All that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by Hims. ED is way more common than most guys think, and millions of guys deal with it at some point. Hims offers a simple, convenient way to take care of your health by connecting you with licensed healthcare providers online and giving you access to personalized treatment options from the comfort of your home. No awkward appointments, no pharmacy lines, just a straightforward process designed to make getting care easier. Taking care of yourself shouldn't feel complicated, and Hims makes the process private and easy to navigate. It's healthcare built around your schedule and your comfort. A lot of people put things off because they don't know where to start. Hims makes it easier with a straightforward online process and discreet delivery, so getting care feels even more comfortable. Get simple online access to personalized, affordable care for ED, hair loss, weight loss, and more. Visit hims.com/lockedonmlb. That's hims.com/lockedonmlb for your free online visit. hims.com/lockedonmlb. Prescription required. See website for details and important safety information. This show is also brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works together in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focus on growing the business instead of just managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone work together towards the same goal. And that's true in sports just like it is in business. You got to have everybody working towards that same goal, just like the bullpen, doing their job last night of just getting the job done without having to use any of those A reliever, keeping this team in the game and keeping this organization all on the same page. The adjustment, it's important, but we're really impressed with how smoothly it was implemented. Everybody knew their role, everybody was on the same page, and that's what usually separates good organizations from the great ones, because the great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Now, the Rangers pitching staff was not particularly inspiring yesterday, giving up 6 runs against this Miami Marlins team that, credit to them, they have been incredibly hot as of late. This was one of the hottest teams in baseball heading into this series, with one of the best records in all of Major League Baseball in the month of June. And the Rangers were able to take game one in this one, and they were able to fight back and make it close in game 2 of this series, and even force them to throw their closer, or who I think has been their closer, the former Ranger great Pete Fairbanks, the accountant who the Rangers gave away for Nick Solak, who the Rangers just saw in that series against the San Diego Padres, and just twisted the knife just a little bit of remembering, it would have been really nice to have Pete Fairbanks over the last several years, as opposed to Nick Solak, who did not do all that much in his time with Texas. But this Rangers offense, credit to them, they did give themselves some chances against a very, very tough pitcher. I mean, Sandy Alcantara has been pretty darn good so far this year. Not quite Cy Young levels, but he's had a few slip-ups. But this has been a very, very good starting pitcher, and one of the more consistent pitchers over the last half decade when he has been on the mound. This is a guy who just loves to pitch deep into games, loves to get soft contact, and he put himself in some trouble in this one, walking 3 and giving up 5 hits, but only allowing the 1 run to score in this one. The Rangers went 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position with 9 runners on base. I know this is a new phenomenon. I've never seen the Rangers do this before. I've just had so many runners on base, and then once they get into clutch situations, nobody could do much of anything. That's such a first for this Ranger squad. No, alas, it was not. But I mean, the guys with runners left in scoring position with 2 outs. Josh Young had 1. Wyatt Langford had a couple. Jared Kelenic had 1. Nicky Lopez had 1. Zeke Duran had 1. So it wasn't just a one batter not coming up clutch. The Rangers had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And had they had one of these big extra base hits late on this game, the Rangers got a homer from Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo got the hardest 2 parts of the cycle, and then also grounded into a double play. If you count that as a double, then maybe he was just a single shy of the cycle. Also had a couple of strikeouts in some of these clutch situations, and really would have been nice for Brandon Nimmo to hit that triple, or really that home run with a couple of runners on early on in this game. Alas, he could not. But the Rangers, credit to them, they did score 3 runs in the final 2 innings of this game. But was really frustrating is that Sandy Alcantara was not at his best in this one. The Rangers made him work early on, but late on did not make him work. This is a guy who loved to pitch deep into games, and the Rangers had him on the ropes in the first 3 innings. 18 pitches in the first inning, 22 in the second, 21 in the second, 22 in the third, and then in the final few innings, they just did not make him work. 13 in the fourth, 13 pitches in the 4th and 5th innings, and just 7 to breeze through the 6th inning, when the Rangers could have gotten him out a little bit earlier, gotten to this Marlins pen that has been okay, but not particularly great, where the Rangers did feast in this game and did get some runs, some go-ahead and game-winning runs against them on Monday's game. Alas, they could not get him out of this game early enough to end up, doing damage and, getting a win. They were, bit in the butt by Heriberto Hernandez, who is a former Rangers prospect who the Rangers gave up back in the Nathaniel Lowdale. Back then, he was a catcher / first baseman. He's a DH in this one, mostly played the outfield and has done pretty well for Miami. I forget the deal he was in to bring him from the Tampa Bay Rays to the Miami Marlins. But still, he's been actually a minor league free agent back in 2024. Interesting. That is not what I would have expected for one of the headliners in that Nathaniel Lowe trade that I felt I was very wrong about that low trade. I thought the Rangers were going to get burned pretty badly on that one. Turns out they definitely got the good end of that deal, getting their first baseman for their first ever World Series championship, a Gold Glover, a Silver Slugger. Alas, not an All-Star, but he's having a pretty good year this year for Cincinnati, and I hope he gets some love for an All-Star game at some point in his career. But the middle part of this Rangers lineup that had been doing damage lately just was not able to do damage. It's been a rough week or so for Josh Young, just a rough really series. He had an 0-5 day on Monday, then went 0-4 with a walk in this one. At least did not strike out, lowered his season average down to 300. Wyatt Langford went just 1-4 with a couple of strikeouts looking, and also burned one of the Rangers challenges. But Jock Peterson and Brandon Nimmo, they were doing damage in this one, a multi-hit day for Alejandro Ozuna, who continues to be a pesky at bat. Jared Kelenic goes 0-3, but does work a walk later on in this one to spark a little bit of a rally later on. And then Nicky Lopez drives in the first of the Rangers 4 runs in this one with the bases loaded and no outs. The Rangers, alas, were only able to get 1 run and then immediately gave it up on literally the very first pitch they possibly could in the bottom of the second inning. That was just an opportunity the Rangers did not cash in on. Nicky Lopez has done a good job this year in some of those clutch situations with some of these little small ball things here and there. Kyle Higashioka getting his one hit on a bunt single, just perfectly placed, and thankfully some miscommunication by the Marlins defense allows Kyle Higashioka to speed his way with an infield bunt single all the way to first base to load the bases with nobody out. Last, Nicky Lopez avoids grounding into a double play. Jock Peterson isn't able to get the sac fly and drive the run home from third. Maybe if he does, this game is just a little bit different. Maybe the Rangers just get a few more hits here or there. Just 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position is just not good enough. It's just not good enough. It continues to be a big problem for this Rangers offense. Now, the pitching staff is more the reason that the Rangers lost in this one, but when you have this many chances, you leave 9 runners left on base. You leave so many guys left in scoring position, especially just a little sac fly here and there. Not every situation where you have multiple runners on base has to be a 3-run homer. It doesn't always have to be a bases clearing double in the gap with the bases juice. Sometimes a sac fly will do. Sometimes a bloop single will do. That'll score 2. That is only 1 fewer than a bases clearing double. That is fine if you've got a decent runner at second base. But this Rangers team just continues to waste chances. It was at least against a good starting pitcher and a decent bullpen, but still, you got to feel like this is one the Rangers are kicking themselves over not winning. Had Corniell been just a little bit better, had this bullpen been a little bit more well-rested because they could get some more depth from guys like Nathan Eovaldi early on in the series back at home, or a little bit more innings here or there from Kumar Rocker, maybe this ends up being already a series win and the Rangers can just kind of punt in this last game and or hopefully just score a whole bunch of runs for Jacob deGrom and get the series sweep against a team. But alas, they put themselves in a tough position where this was kind of where their lack of depth left them. And unfortunately, the offense was not quite able to pick them up. Maybe they'll be able to pick up Jacob deGrom in this game on Wednesday afternoon, but there's going to be a lot of picking up for this rotation that has been put in a tough spot with Jack Leiter's injury. But hopefully, we'll start to see some of these guys who I have not really expected to come up big and step up in a big moment after Jack Leiter's injury to maybe finally find their footing this year. But that's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.